The following story has been brought to you by StoriesToInspire.org.
I'm going to tell you one little story that someone sent me in a video yesterday that Rabbi Biederman, who lives in Israel, who is very well known, told over the story. He's told it over a few times. He says there's a person who lives in Israel today, a man who has many, many children. I think he might have had like 20 children. That was the number he said. That sounds like a lot. And he has hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of grandchildren and great-grandchildren now all over Israel. He met Rabbi Biederman once and he said, Rabbi, I want to tell you something. All these kids, they're living all over the place. All these great-grandchildren, hundreds of them, maybe hitting 1,000. All of them are all because of one story. He says, what's the story? He says, I was married for 2 weeks and my mother-in-law called me up and she destroyed me. She ripped into me and shambled me about everything, about me and my character and who I am and what I do. Killed me. He says, I got off the phone shell-shocked. Now that's not a great way to start a marriage, 2 weeks in. He says, and I immediately ran to my rabbis, a rabbi named Rabbi Roth. I went to the rabbi, is a holy man in Israel. He says, I went to the rabbi, and the rabbi said to me, after he heard the whole thing, he said, did you tell anyone yet? He says, no. He says, did you tell your wife? No. Did you tell your mother? He says, no. He says, you didn't tell anyone yet? He says, okay, good. It was just a dream. He says, what? What do you mean? It was just a dream. It wasn't a dream, Rabbi. I was on the phone. I heard it. Every word. No dream. It was just a dream. It never happened. It was just a dream. He says, I went home. I didn't say a word to my wife. It was just a dream. I didn't tell my mother, I didn't tell anybody. It's just a dream. I totally acted like nothing had ever happened. 2 weeks later, my mother-in-law calls me back and calls me to apologize. And she says, I really want to apologize for what happened 2 weeks ago. He says, what happened 2 weeks ago? She says, you don't remember what happened 2 weeks ago? He says, no, I don't know what you're talking about. She says, you don't remember? I yelled at you? He says, I don't know, maybe you're dreaming, Ma. I don't know. She says, no, it wasn't a dream. I remember what I did. He says, Ma, did you meet my mother in the last 2 weeks? She says, yeah. Did my mother say anything about it? She says, no. He says, my mother doesn't know. It was probably a dream. She says, wow, maybe you're right. Maybe it was just a dream. He says, all these kids are a product of that dream. Because the reality is, the dreams and the hopes that most people think marriage is doesn't happen. And when they get punched in the face, they're shocked because they were completely not prepared in how to respond. But if you know these 5 rules, then you know what to hope for. You know what to wait for. You know what to be excited about. Then Bezrat Hashem, when that punch comes, you have a plan. Not to build a house out of Legos, but to build a skyscraper that's something that endures for generations. Thank you.
Enjoyed this story? Come again. Bring a friend. StoriesToInspire.org